Okay, Shefty, on one final note, you broke Maxx Crosby on Friday. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Shefty. Okay, let's talk about that Maxx Crosby trade, shall we? Because we haven't really gotten a chance to take a bite out of the apple. Baltimore Ravens take a huge swing and bring in the Energizer Bunny, a guy who's considered a GOAT, considered a great. We've never got a chance to see him in primetime games. He's obviously been the heart of a Raider and the pillar of the Raiders organization since he got there. Now, going over to the Baltimore Ravens, feels like a perfect fit. Honestly, feels like a perfect fit. This morning, Dan Orlovsky said, all right, there ain't no more excuses, Dahn, anymore. And Lamar Jackson responded with, like, there's never excuses, Dan. What are we even talking about? With a SIG, with looking. So I don't know what all the emojis mean. I don't know if Lamar wants to smoke with Dan Orlovsky or if he's saying that Dan Orlovsky's smoking, which I tried to get him to this morning, I must say. He did not. So we don't know what this is saying, but what we do know, Maxx Crosby going to the Ravens is a huge move by them. And Minter now has Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton, and he also has, Khalil Mack, now Maxx Crosby, amongst other things. Feels like they're loading up for a defense that's about to be back to greatness again next year.
Yeah, they got great players on every level of that defense. Underachieved last year. They were pretty bad last year, near the bottom of the league when it comes to pass rush and sacks. And when you think about the Baltimore Ravens in that defense, that's kind of the first thing you think about. Violent and then getting after the quarterback. So I know you have a guy who's an absolute game changer. Whenever you're trading 2 first-round picks, you want to change that for a guy who changes the math. So when you bring in a guy like Sauce, like we did, that guy got to be able to shut down one side of the field. If it's a pass rusher, you have to change pass protections and impact the game, even when you're not getting sacks. And you got to be able to affect the run game as well. So they're talented on all levels. We know the mind that Jesse Minter is when it comes to calling defense and setting them up. I think this is a good move. You swing for the fences when you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. And, yeah, when you win a couple MVPs, definitely no excuse for the quarterback, and he knows that as well.
Got a couple of these guys who are going to go down as greats, that don't have Super Bowls. Josh Allen, the heat's on.
Yep.
Lamar, the heat's on. Joey B, the heat's on. This is just the life as an NFL quarterback. There was a little bit of odd shift whenever Maxx Crosby goes to Baltimore. We've seen quarterbacks go to new teams, and the Super Bowl odds not change at all. Maxx Crosby, the Condor, the guy that takes no plays off and is relentlessly annoying everybody on the field at all times. Change the math for the Super Bowl odds, Tone.
Yeah, before the trade happened, the Buffalo Bills were the favorites to win the AFC. After the trade happened, the Ravens are now tied with the Buffalo Bills to win the AFC. They are behind the Rams and the Seahawks as far as overall Super Bowl odds go. But right after the Seahawks, right after the Rams, it then goes the Bills and the Ravens, who are now tied to win the AFC. They're 3rd and 4th, respectively, to win the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl odds change on that side. For the Raiders, they had $83 million in cap space on Friday at noon. Now, $110 million. Okay, after the moves that they make. So that's obviously great for them. We like seeing or thinking of Maxx Crosby playing in football that matters, Ty.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying that for years on end now, and it kind of got to the point where we say that every single offseason or around the trade deadline, and it just never happened for whatever reason. But it's awesome that they finally pulled the trigger. And just, speaking from personal experience, you look back to last year, like if you're a fan, Micah Parsons comes in and you feel that effect immediately. You feel it immediately. He makes everybody else better too. So if you're a Ravens fan, you're in 7th heaven this morning.
Let's go to free agency fun zone. Schrags, who all was in for Maxx Crosby? I heard a lot of names. Cowboys. I heard maybe Patriots. Bears maybe. Instead, it ends up being the Ravens. Did we know this, Schrags?
No, several teams were involved with this one, and the Ravens early on Friday did offer those 2 first-round picks. What's interesting is no one else were able to match that. So the Raiders were dangling it a little bit, and the Ravens become the destination. And I will add this. Jesse Minter comes from the Los Angeles Chargers, played against Maxx Crosby 4 different times. In all 4 of those games, Maxx Crosby wrecked shop. The offensive coordinator in Baltimore is now Declan Doyle, 29 years old, a whiz kid offensive coordinator. Everyone thinks of him as a Bears coach, but no, he was with the Denver Broncos, where, oh, by the way, every time that they faced them, he was absolutely dominating them against the Broncos as well. So Maxx Crosby, that is your guy, and he goes to Baltimore where they are thrilled, and you better believe he'll be the last one out of the tunnel doing the Ray Lewis dance when they introduce them at M&T Bank Field.
Dan Orlovsky, you talk about Joe Burrow having to send a message to Jamar Chase saying, hey, just a heads up, another one. Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, and now Maxx Crosby. The AFC North is hot in the kitchen, Dano.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of
why'd you say to Lamar Jackson that there's been excuses before? Sounds like you don't think Lamar's what is Lamar saying to you in that tweet? You think? Do you think he knows you look this cool? What do you think he is saying to you in there?
I don't know what he's saying to me. I can confirm that you tried to get me to smoke this morning, but I chose not to. I think it's just like a figure of he said it himself. It's just like a figure of speech in a way of like, hey, there's always pressure on Lamar. There's always pressure on Joe. There's always pressure on Josh Allen. Like, there's always going to be, but when the organization moves off from a great head coach, brings in another offensive system, and then takes future picks and says, all right, we want this guy, Maxx Crosby, who's been one of the best defensive players in football, it's just another sign of, like, they're not sitting here saying, hey, we're going to ease our way into it. It's like, hey, Lamar, you're still in your prime. Let's go get this done finally. And so maybe it's the one missing piece. That's all. It's like, hey, we're running out of things to reason why it hasn't happened. Josh Allen's in the same boat. There's no doubt about it. They fired Sean McDermott and hired the offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. So I think both of those guys are even more elevated than what they've been in the past. Josh and Lamar have been in the same boat. The most under-pressure quarterback in the NFL for the last 3 seasons or so. This is a huge move, just like Buffalo getting DJ Moore. So, yeah, I would say this. We all grew up in the era playing against Baltimore where it was like you walked into Terrell Suggs, and it was like, oh, gosh, dude, we got to play against Suggs. This is like their generation of Terrell Suggs, where he just sounds and plays like a Raven. You know, Max embodies a lot of what that organization's about. So I said this morning, it said, Buffalo, what's your move? Like, you can't sit pat. Kansas City, what's your move? Cincinnati, what's your move? You can't just sit back and watch.
Colts, what's your move? Boom, we sign Alec Pierce, Dano.
Yeah. I think these teams, like Baltimore's not sitting around and waiting for everybody. I love the fact they did it.
I'll add this. Pat, you were talking about the Cowboys. They were definitely involved, and then 2 first-rounders. They weren't giving up 2 first-rounders.
Well, it would have been silly because they got 2 first-rounders for Micah. Yeah. So why not just keep Micah?
Well, I mean, you decide what's silly, and then we'll see who the eye of the beholder is.